Hey, Vine Church, welcome to the Wednesday night Pick Me Up. So glad you could join us this evening. Psalms chapter 34, verse 3 says, "Magnify the Lord within me." How do you do that? That's what I want to talk to you about. You see, when you think of magnification, there's two things that come to mind: microscopes and telescopes. Microscopes make small things that are small, appear big. Telescopes make things that are big and far away come into view. That second one is really the definition or the concept behind magnifying the Lord. Making something that is big visible. Bringing something that is distant, bigger, vast into full view. That's what we mean. Think about it for a minute. You can fit 1.3 million Earths inside the sun. Looks reasonably small from here, but it's not. If the Earth was a nickel, that would mean that Jupiter was a basketball and Saturn a volleyball. Huge! But it takes a telescope to bring them into full view, to magnify them. As we lead up to Christmas, I've been reading the song that Mary writes in response to the angel telling her that she's going to bear the Savior. It's called the Magnificat. It is her expression, her magnification, her bringing into view, number one, how vast and big God is and how small she is to be included in the plan. There's one verse that comes to mind from this passage. I want to read it to you. Luke chapter 1, verse 50. His mercy extends to those who fear him from generation to generation. Not typically the way we use fear. Current culture uses fear in reference to like horror movies and Halloween and scary costumes, but the fear that's referenced here, it's different. This fear could be exchanged with awe or worship. So let's just do it. Let's change the words around. His mercy extends to those who are in awe of him. His mercy extends to those who worship him from generation to generation. Awe and worship creates and brings about his mercy. And you say, well, why pick that verse in reference to the Magnificat, in reference to magnifying? Well, because that's what Mary's doing here. You see, she's proclaiming, she's stating that she is small, that her mind is set on the vastness of God. Now, let me just make one little statement that at first you may not agree with, but I want you to listen to it. You're made to want to feel small. That's true. And even though it might not ring a bell at first, let me give you a couple illustrations that will connect the dots for you. You ever been to the beach? Not the Gulf, that's a golf. To the beach, looking out at the ocean, the Pacific or the Atlantic, the vastness of that body of water. Everyone who goes, everyone who stands on that beach has a moment of awe-inspiring response. They go back again and again and again because in part it makes them feel small in the midst of the grandness of that ocean. Or the mountains. People from all over will travel and go to the mountains, and in part it's because in those moments we feel small, and there's something that attracts us to that. There's this knowledge that there's something bigger than us out there, and in that moment it's inspiring. I had the pleasure this year to stand at the foot of the Grand Tetons and look up. It was just that, awe-inspiring. Or take, for example, the Grand Canyon. All these people go out to this giant hole in the ground. I mean, that's what it is. People from all over the world and all over our country travel to go out to a giant hole in the ground. And let me tell you what nobody does when they get out there. No one stands at the glass walkway or whatever it is that looks out over this giant hole in the ground and says, "Look at me. I have a master's in psychology, or I'm the head of my department, or the chief in my organization, or the CEO of my company. No one does that. You know why? Because in that moment, we realize just how small we are, and something about that attracts us. Universal, isn't it? You've had that same response. There's something about recognizing the bigness of God and just how small we are that is the process of magnifying Him, bringing Him into full view. It's about taking a step back and seeing how small we are and celebrating and worshiping just how big He is, how mighty He is, how all-powerful He truly is. That's what it means to magnify the Lord. It means to humble yourself and be thankful for His mercies, and to allow your need and your frailty and your imperfections and your immorality to be met with His grace, His truth, His mercy, and His love. It's to lift Him up and not ourselves. This Christmas, as we get going, I hope that's your heart. I hope that you'll worship in that way, because Mary says that those who worship Him, He'll give mercy to, from generation to generation. Magnify Him in me. As far as we can go for tonight, love you. Mean it.